Greetings, everyone. Welcome to GitLab's monthly release kickoff call. Today we'll kick off release 13.4, slated for September 22nd, 2020. My name is Anup Dawar, and I'm the Vice President of Product Management here at GitLab. And before we get started, I have a few public service announcements. Let me share my screen. First, I wanted to share with you that virtual commit is upon us on August 26th, and it's free. And it's filled with practical strategies for doing DevOps and DevSecOps, so please check it out. Second, we have done a meaningful shift on how we drive product management at GitLab, and we're shifting from only adding features or doing breadth to a more focused view on adoption and monetization. So we will be prioritizing monthly active users, and we believe that a lot of the adoption and monetization in the future is going to come through making discoverability, usability, and performance improvements. So look forward to that. And third, you will see all the issues that we're working on the product kickoff page, and you can contribute to them or put in your comments to help make the product better. Finally, last but not least, we plan ambitiously, which means things we say here are subject to change without notice. Please don't make any material decisions based on that, but keep checking out keep coming back to the issues to see what the latest state for the issue is. Today, we'll start off with Eric on dev, followed by Kenny, who will go over the ops section, defend and secure with David, and finally, enablement with Josh. With that, take it away, Eric.
Thanks so much, Anup. My name's Eric. I'm the product director for the dev section, and I'm excited that we've got two big themes of work slated in GitLab 13.4. The first is enterprise readiness, and this is not a theme that is unfamiliar, as I've talked about it before, but it's really around implementing the controls and safeguards needed to have an enterprise-grade experience on both self-managed and GitLab.com. So let's go ahead and dive in. The first thing our teams are going to be working on is creating a no access rule for those customers that have connected to GitLab.com via SSO. Currently today, if you SSO into your organization and that's connected to GitLab.com, you have access to essentially every project and subgroup under that top level group because you don't have instance level access. We want to change this so that users that SSO in have a no access role and are granted permission to the various projects and subgroups that they need access to, which should really be helpful in limiting the information and access that users need for various organizations. The second thing we're going to continue working on is exporting our audit events table to CSV. So we have an audit log section in the product here, and you can see very simply what we're going to do is add an export a CSV button up here, which will allow our customers to export that data and import it into any other reporting or SIM tool that they may have. The next improvement we're going to make is to add a revoke button to the personal access token tab of the credential inventory screen. So the credential inventory screen is something we've been iterating on for quite a while. And we're trying to balance really two things here. One, developer efficiency and security. So we provide a whole bunch of warnings when personal access tokens expire, but we don't really provide a great way for administrators or group owners to revoke those credentials. And so we're going to add a very simple button for administrators and group owners here in the credential inventory screen to revoke someone's personal access token. In case an organization needs to do that on some sort of schedule, or in the case of some sort of event where we need to manage those credentials a little bit more tightly. And then also we're going to iterate on our requirements management feature. And so a lot of regulated industries use our requirements management feature, which is over here in the sidebar, to list their requirements and then mark those as satisfied via CI tests, but you can't mark one satisfied manually. And so we're going to continue to make an improvement that will allow a manual way to mark a requirement as satisfied. And this will look something like this. Our last big bucket of work for enterprise readiness is our iterations on Gitlab cluster, which is our high availability solution for Gitlab. And in particular, what we're going to do is add a feature that overrides the replication factor for a specific repository. What this means in general is that we're going to allow you to select how many times you want a specific repository to be replicated. Right now, that's currently set to however many clusters you have. And for large repositories, that can mean an enormous amount of storage required to actually run Gitlab clusters. So we want to be able to have that configurable, which is just a great way to start iterating towards a lot more flexible configurations in Gitlab cluster. Our second theme is user experience improvements, and this is going to really touch all three of the stages in the dev section. The first user experience improvement is really actually a new feature, and it's one I'm quite excited about, which is adding a dedicated reviewer section for merge requests. If you have used GitHub in any sort of fashion, you have already probably taken advantage of this feature. But what this is going to do is it's going to add a reviewer section in the sidebar of a merge request so that you don't have to use the assignee field to tell who and when something is going to be reviewed. So very simply, in this first iteration, we're going to allow you to select reviewers, and then we'll follow on in the subsequent releases to make this experience better. But I'm really excited to add this into the product finally. We're also going to make an iteration related to to-dos and design views. If you use GitLab a lot, you likely use our to-do feature, which is a really nice feature to help you manage your work and what to prioritize inside of GitLab. But you can't add or resolve a to-do from the design view. And so what we're going to do is add that, and very simply what this will look like is in the top right, you'll be able to mark your to-do as done from the design view, and then also add a to-do if you want to come back to it later. We're making another usability improvement in the merge request, which is to implement the Web IDE button in the diff tab of a merge request. So today, in order to go to the Web IDE, you have to navigate back out to the overview tab of the merge request and then up into the to kind of the middle widget and find the Web IDE button. And very simply, what we're going to do is add a Web IDE button right here on the diff screen. So you can find that and load that really easily. Our last improvement related to an enhanced user experience is one that is really exciting, which is moving our GitLab for Jira app and our Dvcs connector for Jira features down to core. And so both of these things really do the same thing. They connect your Jira instance to GitLab and help facilitate a data transfer between the two. But we want to really expand the installation success rate for these two applications and just make sure that our customers are having a great experience if they use both GitLab and Jira. So I'm excited to see this move down to core, and I hope that they'll provide any sort of feedback that you have if you're able to use it. And then lastly, while not directly related to something that you would visually experience a change with, I wanted to highlight this because it's really important. We're going to fix an N+1 query problem, which is in our notification controller. So if you've ever gone to your notification section in GitLab and you're a part of a lot of groups or projects, you probably have noticed that it takes a really long time to load. So we're going to finally prioritize this and fix this this hard to fix N+1 query, which should increase the performance of this page and just in general increase the overall experience of that particular settings section. As always, there's a ton more in the dev section that we're planning. You can check it out on the kickoff page, and I'll pass it over to Kenny to talk about ops.
Hey, awesome. Thanks, Eric. Let me share my screen real quick. Just a reminder to everyone, the ops section covers the verify, package, release, configure, and monitor stages. I wanted to follow up on Eric's theme about moving items to core as my kind of primary top highlight. And that is in 13.4, we're going to be moving our feature flags capabilities to core. If you're not familiar with feature flags, it's a really important capability that allows teams to start taking not just continuous delivery approaches to providing value to their customers, but progressive delivery. It's a great example of the need for a single application because it really highlights the importance of collaboration between development teams who are creating the features behind the feature flag and operations teams who need awareness about the state of various feature flags when responding to issues in production. It's also the kind of thing that allows teams to not have to strike this balance between shipping fast and shipping safely, because by managing your feature flags, you can be more concerted in your rollout of new features and capabilities and new code to your users in production. So I'm really excited about moving this to core and giving the opportunity for more developers and more users to make use of our feature flag capabilities. I also wanted to, like Eric, highlight a general theme in our review of the items across the ops section. And that is, I wanted to highlight what will seem like very small issues, but are really great usability improvements. That each individual small issue might save you as a user a handful of seconds or a couple of clicks, but what they really enable you to do is move your experience from operating within our single platform from feeling like it's a lot of toil to try to figure something out to having a great experience where you can feel like you're getting your job done quickly and efficiently. So with that, I'll jump through a couple of highlights across the stages. In Verify, in 13.2, we released the capability to do matrix builds. This allows you to, in your CI definition, create a kind of fan out of different builds based on different parameters. The primary one is using different stacks and providers. You can see an example here. What this ended up doing was creating however many jobs, in this case, I think it's 7 jobs with just the job name and a reference to how many of the count it was. So job name 1 of 2 and job name 2 of 2. That wasn't super descriptive. It's hard for users who are then trying to troubleshoot what's going on in that job to know which one am I specifically looking at. So in 13.4, we're going to be adding the ability, we're going to automatically add an append to the job name the variables that are used when defining the matrix build. This is a simple textual change, but gives a really great experience to the users to be able to quickly do the job that they need to do. Again, in Verify, we late in the 12 release series, we added the ability to create parent-child pipelines, really critical, especially when managing mono repos. But there was some difficulty in the UX to determine what was the relationship between the job that triggered a downstream pipeline and that pipeline. And so we're going to be adding usability improvements to better designate which jobs triggered which child pipelines and kind of allow you to have this caret open and close experience where you can see, hey, this was a triggering job and here's the subsequent child pipeline that was run as a result. Again, a usability improvement when looking at pipelines, but really helps users get to the information they need as quickly as possible. We're also going to be adding a graphic visualizer while writing your CI YAML file. So today it can often be confusing while writing your YAML and using even when using our linter, understanding exactly what jobs are going to be created. By adding this direct visualization, we'll make the process of authoring and editing your CI YAML much more smooth. Again, in Verify, and this is in our testing group, we have always provided code coverage reports. And if you work in a monorepo or any environment where you're producing many JUnit reports that apply to your merge request, we would typically take the average of the results of that code coverage when presenting it in the merge request. Well, we realized from users that that was difficult to understand exactly what was going on and how that was calculated. So we're going to add this tooltip and explanation that says which jobs reported JUnit coverage and what was the breakdown for each specific job. So if you're really interested in the code coverage report for a specific language or from a specific job, you can get to it quickly. This one is one of my favorites. It's a really minor adjustment, but shows the kind of research that we did to understand what details are important. Today we have in our package stage a package repository, and each package has a header that gives a set of information. And we realized when talking to users, our great UX design team and research team did, that it was better for us to adjust the ordering in which we were presenting that information. Today, the information is presented in this order with tag coming and then the type of repository and then the branch that was created. It was created from, and instead we're going to adjust that order to showcase more the size and then the branch name at a later point. Again, just making sure that the information that users find most valuable is front and center, kind of the first thing they naturally come to. In our release stage, again, this is a small iteration that helps and also connects multiple DevOps stages. In our release stage, we have the ability in the environments view to roll back recent changes, especially if they're deployed with containers, to roll back in that environment to a previous version. Well, in this iteration, we're going to be adding a connection between an alert that you might get on that environment and that environments page. So you are one click away from the ability to roll back that change. Pretty minor text change to showcase exactly what that environment is, but allows for a much smoother user experience. In our configure stage, we've recently added a number of features around enabling you to manage Terraform state files with GitLab. One of the things we found was that it was difficult to set up because the experience for performing that setup, this kind of main call here, you can't even see the total configuration that it goes for. It's a really long call that you have to make in order to set up the Terraform state backend, was overly complicated. And so by using environment variables, we can make that call much simpler for our users so that they can get up and running with this critical new feature more easily. And lastly, in our monitor stage, I want to highlight over the last 4 to 5 releases, we've added a lot of great capabilities in our incident management features. And one of the things that we realized was that the process of interacting with incidents was radically different than interacting with issues. So we're going to be doing a whole redesign of how you interact with incidents by giving you this tab view to show summary, alert details, metrics, and logs right there in context in the incident as you're triaging it. That will really help teams that are firefighting an issue get to the answers that they need quickly so that they can get their application back up and running in production. So those are the issues I wanted to highlight, again, with the theme of improving the usability for our users so that they can do their job quickly and efficiently. With that, I will hand it over to David to cover Secure and Defend.
Thank you, Kenny. Let me get my screen shared. Okay, so to kind of dive into the Secure and Defend section, let's first talk about our strategic objectives or themes. We've been talking a lot in earlier kickoff calls about our offline environment support, and that did ship as an MVC back in 12.10. I'm also very happy to share with everyone that that differentiator within our portfolio helped in closing GitLab's largest deal to date. A lot of security products today do not allow you to run within that offline or air-gapped environment, and this was a nice differentiator for the company. Next is our application security testing leadership. As I shared in the last kickoff call, we're a little bit behind of our target of being done by the end of this year. However, you'll see that theme go through all the different work that's going on. And then finally, and this is new, starting with this kickoff call, is a focus on dogfooding the secure stage itself within GitLab. This is super important to the team because if we can't make ourselves happy with our own product, how do we expect other people to be paying for it? And so we're going to be spending a lot of time rolling out all different scan types and leveraging our vulnerability management over the next quarter here. So kind of dive into the items for application security testing leadership and dogfooding. First, for stack analysis, SAST is beginning to support custom rule sets for the analyzers. And this is going to allow you to get in and set specific rules based off that scan type, as well as other components that you would want to define in that custom rule. Ultimately, the goal is to help you reduce your false positives and get to the actual items you need to fix. And we touched on this in the last kickoff call, the rollout of our new SAST-based configuration UI. And you can see those custom rules are showing up directly as an editable option. And then finally, you were able to just go down and click create merge request, and then we'll auto-generate the CI configuration for your SAST scanners. On the DAS side, we're continuing to iterate and improve our scanner profile. On this release, we're looking at adding in timeouts. So spidering timeout, that's when we're scanning the application to learn it. So if there's a certain amount of time that's enabled or has gone by, we can stop scanning. And then same thing with the target. So if the target's not responsive, we can then also set a timeout for that as well. Also within DAST, we're improving our site validation components. One thing to kind of consider with secure is offensive security testing. So we're actually attacking, I'll put that in quotes, your applications on your configuration. And so here we're adding in a site validation component where you can define which option you want to use, so we can validate that that app is actually your app and you didn't inadvertently type in the wrong information. And now you're running a DAS scan against an asset that's not yours. If you have not validated the target, you can only run a passive scan. But once you validate it, you can go back to running a full active scan. On the dependency scanning side, we've added new language support. This includes C and C++, as well as .NET and C# support, again, coming out in 13.4. On the fuzzing side, our MVC for API fuzzing will be coming out. So we're very excited about that as well. This brings in the last acquisition that we made back at the beginning of the year, and you'll then have access to the API fuzzing starting with 13.4. Included in that is also going to be the support for authenticating off the REST API. We're going to be supporting basic and digest authentication, allowing you to not just test what the fuzzer can see without signing in, but also going beyond that and testing the REST endpoints that have authentication on them. Here's a sneak peek of what this is going to look like in the UI. I will point out this is already live on .com, as you can see in the browser bar here. But if we scroll down, we're giving you a lot of information on this initial MVC, not only just information about the endpoint and the security findings, but also all the way down to what we identify would be a valid request for the API, how we actually mutated that request to find the security issue, and then the response that we're getting from that. So giving you all the data you need up front to be able to quickly triage and address the findings. On the threat insight side, we're continuing to iterate on the security dashboards. Here's a sneak peek of what the instance level dashboard will look like. You can see here at the top, we have now a menu on the side. When you go underneath it, you have dedicated widgets on the dashboard now, and we'll continue to add more and improve upon what is here today. And then you'll see that the list of vulnerabilities are now on their own page called Vulnerability Report. This is allowing us to get you a lot more information within this single view, including things such as the line of code that's impacted, what scanner found it, are there issues created, and so forth. We're also finishing up our redesign of the project level security dashboard as well. And you'll see that same sort of thing is rolled out down here, where you'll see in the project level will be a dedicated security dashboard and then a vulnerability report. On this, I want to highlight for you the improvements we're now able to start making on the dashboard components. Here you can see a much deeper drill down on the findings month over month, as well as you can begin to drill into specific windows that you want to look at. And then, of course, we'll continue to iterate on these, including making them larger, like you can see here, and rearranging them on the screen. On the defense side, as shown on the kickoff page, there's not a lot of new content coming out for defend in 13.4, and that's because the team is heavily focused on our first objective, which is emphasizing usability and convention over configuration. And so with that, you can see here our work on that policy manager that we rolled out recently. And here's a nice screenshot of it as well. So the team is working on improving things such as the natural language rule builder, as well as allowing you to manage your policies across your projects. That's a lot of information really quickly. So please, if you have any questions, feel free to comment on the comments or on the issues on the Release Kickoff call page. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Josh.
Awesome. Thanks, David. That is super exciting. Like others, we have a lot of really awesome features that we're working on here in 13.4, and we only have time in this call to cover the highlights. So please do look through the videos that we have for each group. They contain more information, more detail, and will help provide more context on all of what we're working on here in enablement. But as far as the big things we're working on, we are continuing to focus on improving performance and scalability across the product for both .com as well as all of our self-managed customers. One of the areas that we've been focusing on recently is adding support for dynamic imagery sizing. So this has been identified as one of the top changes that we can make to improve the perceived performance of our end users. For example, right now, we currently send down full-size images, even if it's something as small as the icon up here in the top corner. And that has a significant impact on the overall size of transfer, the rendering in the browser, and more. And so if we're able to deliver the proper size that is needed for the page, that will significantly improve overall performance of the GitLab and help improve our responsiveness. The goal here for 13.4 is to actually start rolling this out in experimental fashion for .com, but also customers who want to potentially opt in. And as part of that, we'll also be working on making sure we address any security needs to ensure we can do this in a safe manner, as resizing images can potentially have some challenges there. So that's super exciting. Really looking forward to that improvement. We're also continuing to work through the biggest, you might say, offenders of the cache SQL calls here. We had a great result in the last release with improving the notes controller. We reduced the overall time it took by 75% by optimizing these queries. And the next one we want to target here is the merge request content controller to help improve that very commonly used merge request workflow and help make it faster for all of our users. Next up, we are shifting over towards more the scalability side of things, and we are continuing to work on driving towards PG12, which has a lot of performance improvements, but also additional improvements for partitioning. And we actually are pretty close to being done with the opt-in phase here. We have a few items left to go. The big one here in 13.4 is support for our Helm chart for PG12. And we'll be addressing many of these things here in 13.4 with the goal of making it opt out in 13.6, as in they will now be the default for new installations and auto upgrade users at that point in time. And then with the goal of overall making it required in 14.0. So we are essentially wrapping up the work here largely with PG12 and Petroni, which is very exciting. And we can now focus on other things like we can continue to work on our moving the cloud native installation from viable to complete. And so we're going through and addressing more of the Kubernetes distribution, the gaps that we have, and addressing them. Some of the key ones we're addressing here in 13.4 is support for smart card and CAC authentication, and also addressing some additional documentation needs that we have for a few of the various charts that we support. This will help round out support across GitLab's features as we continue to do things and target areas like pages once those have support for Kubernetes in general. Moving forward, we're also working on taking our Helm chart and all our investments in Kubernetes and making sure we can have great support for OpenShift. We're working on this in partnership with Red Hat, which is very exciting. And we are making some progress here on adding support to utilize the Helm chart as a base for the operator. And this allows us to leverage all the work we've put into the Helm charts today and also help have a migration path for our users and more of a controlled migration over from the Helm chart over time to a more operator-driven focus in the future. We're also working on additional schema and migrations. We started this work off with audit events, and we'll be wrapping that up here in 13.4. But we're also working on a couple other new areas as well, one of which is the container registries database it's working on to add the ability to look and see what projects and groups are actually consuming your container registry storage. Right now, that's not available, and we're working on this database in partnership with the package team to be able to add support for this. And so this is a key area for us to have that introspection and ability. And we continue to also work on a new table as well, which is the events table, which captures all of our users' traffic. Moving on from there, we'll be continuing to round out support in Geo for additional replication types. The goal here in 13.4 is to essentially have support for everything with the exception of pages. And so we're going through and finishing off external merge request diffs, Terraform states, and snippet files. And then we'll also be working on adding support for Postgres HA or multi-node Postgres. And this way, if you want to have a secondary which has a multi-node installation of Postgres to more closely mirror your primary, this way you can have if you have a failover, it's more likely to be able to instantly handle the load that is transferred over without having to additionally scale. And so for customers that are large that want this level of assurance, we can now provide it, and we're working on providing it here in 13.4. Last but certainly not least, we're working on some major UX improvements to global search. I am really excited about this. We are starting off, of course, in an iterative fashion here with 13.4. We're adding the ability to sort on issues and merge requests based on how you want to order them, whether it's relevance or last updated and things like that. We're also updating the titles and a couple other areas. But we're ultimately driving towards is this design, which we have aligned on here with the global search team. And I think it's really compelling. A consolidated result view, left-hand side faceting, so you can drill down across different types of content. And as you drill down, you can get different ways to filter it, whether it's an epic, a milestone, or user. And of course, as you change from issues to merge request to code, these things will change as well. So really exciting for the improvements here in global search. And with that, I'll pass it back to Anoop.
Thank you, Josh. That is exciting. That's amazing amount of work that the team's doing. Thank you very much. Also, one final note, don't forget to check out 13.3 release that is slated to come out in about 4 days. I'm particularly excited about the fact that package registry is going into core. We have new coverage guided fuzz testing for Go and C++, and also the ability to create a matrix of jobs using a simple syntax for your CI pipelines. With that, thank you for taking the time, and we'll see you again next month.